It's Latin for many.
Tick.
Now suck your blood. Now suck
Politics.
your blood.
Politics. All right, we're getting this from Daily Caller, and the headline is CNN pushed the Russian collusion hoax. Student confronts Brian Stelter during conference. And,
yes.
Yeah, did you see the clip that was viral?
I've heard all about it. I have not actually watched it.
Yeah.
I saw screenshots.
No Agenda did cover it earlier today, if you're listening live. But just to get an idea here, a University of Chicago freshman confronted CNN Brian Stelter about the outlet's involvement in pushing disinformation during a conference Wednesday. Christopher Phillip lodged a question to Stelter during the university's Disinformation and the Erosion of Democracy conference. Ooh. That would have been a fun one to go to, huh? Disinformation.
Yeah, it sounds like a
democracy.
real blast.
I mean, are they saying, is Stelter saying he's the one providing disinformation in the erosion of democracy?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Okay, well then it's titled accurately. It's a good name for a thing that Brian Stelter's talking at.
Yeah.
So it goes into the clip. Let me actually just play it. It's 2 minutes long. Do you want to play the whole thing? I think it's worth.
Yeah, it's fine. I want to hear it. Yeah.
Because Brian Stelter does sort of answer something interesting, and I think, surprisingly, I think it's important to sort of listen to what he said here. So,
hi, thank you for coming.
My name is Chris.
What's that?
It might be the first time ever that it's important to hear what he says.
Well, I don't know that it's important, but it is at least interesting. Here we go.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
It's too bad. It's time for lunch.
You have 30 seconds.
No, I mean, there's a clock that says 30 seconds. But I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail after this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch. But I understand that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it. But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help. They tried to help him get out of the country. They tried to find the dead crew members. That's what news outlets do. That's how they actually do work together, to your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust. We don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality about how that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news business that people don't see, that people don't hear. They imagine that it's a situation that simply is not. But I think your question, it speaks to the failure of journalism to show our work and show the reality of how our profession operates. We have a lot of work to do, I think.
So there you go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. So what's been the response?
Well, obviously it's not been a good response publicly.
I mean, this is a ridiculous. I mean, this was expertly done, I will say.
Yeah,
this was. Did a good job, I don't know if he had this planned or if he had been thinking about this or what. I don't know what it is, but it was excellently done because it didn't answer the question, and it didn't answer anybody's question. It was a talking point. It was literally the act of creating a narrative that is unfalsifiable. I mean, I don't even know if it is unfalsifiable. It may very well be falsifiable. But, the question is like, what kind of responsibility do you take because of your own fake news participation or whatever? Right. And he goes into like, when a Fox guy was in trouble, we band together. The red phone of news guys went off, and I answered the call, and I got him out of there. And we went on I suited up and booted up, and glided over to Ukraine to get the body, bring him back. Okay, Brian.
Yeah. So here's my response to this when I hear him talk about this. Obviously, I agree with you on all that. I think it's interesting that he went to like the most recent thing with the Ukraine situation, because it was the first time in a while, at least in the US, that we saw any kind of solidarity between news agencies where they were like, right. Oh no, we need to stop this infighting. And Biden even announced it. Remember, he's like, no more fighting about COVID and blah, blah, blah. We need to blah. And that was right about the time Ukraine became an issue. Right. So I think part of the whole New World Order agenda is to sort of divide then unite. It's divide and conquer, divide for a while, but then when we unite, we can unite stronger and that kind of thing. And there's a purpose outside of the US to do that. So there's it's a good out for Stelter. But the other thing is, he brought up like the personal sort of experience of like, oh, well, this is what we do. And, behind the scenes, it's not what people think and all that. Well, it's like, yeah, of course, like we're not, and I think this is part of the issue in talking past one another a lot of times in these situations where these guys, they think they're getting like personally attacked when, of course, there's personal responsibility as, talking heads, I guess.
I mean, you're a public figure.
You're a public figure, of course.
You're allowed to be talked about.
But I don't think you can become Brian Stelter if you don't have a very, very capable brain of compartmentalizing your day-to-day experience with what you're actually doing in terms of spewing the propaganda of, just speaking the talking points that are handed down from on high. Like, I don't think he can't possibly realize, or maybe he has moments of clarity. I don't know. But to him, it's like, I'm doing a very important work, and that delusion, I guess, of the news. But at least he said, oh, we have a lot of work to do, which is like, yeah, because in the last 10 years, there's this whole thing that has developed, this sort of journalism of the journalists, like keeping track of how honest these journalists all over the world are being. And clearly when that magnifying glass was put upon journalists in the last few years, it's been like, wow, this is really out of control. And, it has a lot to do with the Smith-Mundt Act, and there's all sorts of reasons for that. But it goes to show, I think it showed the vulnerability of someone like Brian Stelter in the sense of like him admitting, and this is not him like openly admitting, but with his words, he's basically saying, yeah, I don't really know like how this all works. Like, I'm just working hard. Like, I don't really know everything I don't understand that I'm a propaganda piece, like almost unaware of this reality that he is a pusher of a narrative. And so I don't know. To me, it was an admission.
No, that's a great point because, when we talk about the lizard people and the New World Order and the Illuminati and the mainstream news and the this and the that, it's, one of the main defenses. And we saw this when we saw the mainstream news trying to talk about this term New World Order. And it was infuriating because all they ever wanted to do was like, the New World Order, it's not like everybody getting together and having a plan and agreeing and worshiping the devil.
They actually do that, like multiple times in multiple places over multiple years. But okay, all right.
But it's not in the exact way that they want you to think you think.
Right.
Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they just twist it just enough to say that it isn't something that sounds. It sounds reasonable. And it's kind of what he's saying here. Like he's talking about how, we're just humans trying to do a really good work and we gotta do better. And we don't watch the same channel, man. And it's like, well, we really don't need you to show us what your job is like.
Right.
Because that's called propaganda, Brian. That is pretty much the exact definition of propaganda. I don't want you to tell me what your day is like. I want to see what your day is like outside of your twisty-turvy propaganda, rhetorical, tomfoolery. So anyways, I mean, of course he says this, doesn't answer the question, but goes back to the storyline of like how virtuous news people are and how good they are at being good human beings. Those are the news guys I know. Okay, dude. I mean, literally every piece of evidence counts towards the contrary. But okay,
he knows.
I think he is brainwashed. Like I don't think he knows how silly he
that's
looks.
what I'm saying. All he knows is propaganda. Like even what he said there about the journalists is propaganda for the journalists. It's just
right.
He doesn't know anything but to sort of put a facade on the reality.
And
of
again.
things.
He didn't answer anybody's question. Nobody
that's
asked,
not surprising.
"Hey Brian, are you good guys? Are you
a good person?
Are you a good person? Do you care about people dying?" Like that wasn't the question. So, anyways, that's fun times, Brian. Thank you.